The most outdated idea of going to school, getting a job, or working hard, saving money, getting out of debt, and investing long-term in the stock market because it would save money when they're printing trillions of dollars. The gap between the 1% and the 99% is enormous, and sometimes it's not just about the money. You have to stop and analyze the essential landscape. Inside each of us, there is a poor person. There is still a poor person inside me. There is also a middle-class person. And middle-class people want security. They want that fixed salary. There is also a rich person inside me. All these people are within us. It's just that they don't teach us. They teach you to go to school, get a job, and get a paycheck. They don't teach you how to get rich. If you've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you'll know that my rich dad refused to pay me. He said that getting a paycheck was one of the most damaging things you could receive in your life. He said, the moment you take a paycheck, you're an employee, and that's a mindset. So my rich dad never paid me. It drove my poor dad crazy, a government employee who thought, you have to pay people. My rich dad didn't say the salary was bad. He said you shouldn't be a slave to a salary. So as an entrepreneur, if Dad Rich retires, just start another business. I don't need a paycheck. I don't need anyone to take care of me. If my government doesn't want me, I'll move to another country because they always need entrepreneurs. They really always need that mindset and those skills that entrepreneurs possess. And small businesses don't operate by the same rules as big businesses. First of all, being an entrepreneur is a mindset, a set of skills and roles. And depending on the type of business, the rules are different, and the mindset is different, the skills are different. If I could give advice to someone who has never ventured and is thinking of taking the leap to become an entrepreneur, what would I tell them? Well, I'll just tell you something that happened to me. My last paycheck, I remember, was one of the worst and yet one of the best days of my life. I was in Puerto Rico, working for the South OCSS, and my boss gave me the last check. It wasn't a paycheck. It was a bonus check. I think it was about $30,000. So I received this check and I said, "Holy cow, do you know what the last check means?" So I was excited, but I was also disturbed. And then another person comes up to me, and his name was John, and he says, "Are you coming back?" I said, "Why?" He says, "Because you're going to fail." I looked at him and I cursed at him because that's what he did. He said, "Xerox failed and came back." And I told him, "You failed and came back, but I'm going to fail and never come back." And that's the attitude, you know what I mean? If you say, "Well, if I fail, I'll go back to mom and dad," and that's what you'll do. So when you fail, that's when you become an entrepreneur. I didn't have money for years. I didn't have a great salary. But that's what my rich dad encouraged me to do. When you don't have that guaranteed income, you become hungrier, smarter, and you test yourself. You'll become a thief. You'll become dishonest, deceive, so you'll steal or become a better human being. That's the advantage of becoming an entrepreneur. You really discover who you are when you have nothing. So you always have to have a global vision. Many people have it and do very well. When you look at the big picture, you know that when something bad happens, something good comes from behind. But you have to prepare for what's coming. If you think the next 20 years will be like the last 20 years, you'll crash. When you and I go to the supermarket and buy a carton of milk, we always check the expiration date. But most people don't check the expiration date of their brains. Instead of getting out of loans, get more into debt. If I just refinanced $300 million in debt from 5% to 2.5% interest, I made a fortune. Every month I receive more money because the interest rate has dropped. So while some financial experts say get out of debt, I say learn to use debt. You'll see, when I returned from Vietnam in January of '73, the first thing my rich dad told me was, go to school to learn to invest in real estate. It wasn't real estate. It was how to use loans and taxes. Debt and taxes make the rich richer. Debt and taxes make the poor and middle class poorer. So all those doctors and lawyers are losing money, and they don't know why. They may make a lot of money, but it'll take a lot away in taxes. My doctor yelled at me. He was happy. He said, "Oh, guess what? I finally made $1 million. And I said, yeah, okay, how much do you pay in taxes? He said, $750,000 in taxes. So his net was about $400,000. That's not bad, but when they get to $1 million, I keep $1 million. And the reason is that I don't do it by working for a salary. You see, if you work for a salary, you're subject to taxes. That's why the number one choice of rich dad, poor dad is that the rich don't work for a salary. What we do instead is create businesses. Like entrepreneurs, we acquire real estate. I don't invest in the stock market. The reason is that as an entrepreneur, I have more control over my income, how much I earn, and how much I pay in taxes. And as an entrepreneur and a real estate investor, I pay 0 taxes. So every time I make, say, $1 million as an entrepreneur, I immediately invested in real estate and have a 4-to-1 leverage. So I put $1 million in real estate, I get $4 million from the bank. That's why I love banks. But banks are screwing everyone. That's because when they print money, it's good for you, but when they print money, it's bad for people because when they print more money, savings devalue and wage earners have less purchasing power. In contrast, investors get richer. You see, debt and taxes make the rich richer and the poor and middle class poorer. When we have outdated ideas, we get outdated results. That's what's happening to most people. The idea of going to school to get a job, work hard, save money, get out of debt, buy a house because it's an asset, and invest long-term is outdated. The world changed in 1971 when President Nixon took us off the gold standard and money became debt. And if we don't go to school, what would happen then? It would be better if we had no education system. I'm not saying education was more important before, just that it